So I went to SuperBooth this year and I was thinking of doing like a real-time report of the entire event, but I decided to hold off a little bit. It's now almost a week later. I just needed some time to absorb what the f happened. I met some of my favorite YouTubers and learned a bunch from them, and also learned a lot about myself during the whole experience. I saw Heimbach do his thing, which was great. Great food. There was these gyros that were just so... It's really an amazing event overall, and I would recommend it to anyone who's into synths or gear, especially if you're in the surrounding area. It's kind of funny though, because I thought I'd be leaving with like gas levels off the charts, and they were high the first day. But after doing a few rounds of all the different synths, I definitely felt a little bit more focused as to what stood out to me and what I liked. I had the pleasure of meeting Bo Beats as well, and we spoke about like the spectrum of music versus gear and where each of us are on that spectrum. I definitely came into this channel as much more of a music guy, but since the starting of it, it's been almost about 3 years. I'd say I tilted maybe like 40 degrees towards gear. Understanding gear and just being interested in the design of it, engineering, all those sorts of things. But yeah, like I said, we essentially established that I'm a music guy at heart that also likes gear. The gear guy, gear girl guy spectrum goes a lot farther than I thought it did. What I was exposed to at this festival was the gear side, or I would say pretty much engineering side of the spectrum, where it's not really about being as creative as you can be as a musician or producer. It's more about engineering. And yeah, it's a good question, like where do you think you are on that spectrum? Let us know in the comments. And in terms of gas, coming to an event like SuperBooth just allows you to try everything out. And so the way I look at it, there's too much gear, so you turn your focus to instruments that really stand out to you, and you sort of cautiously ignore everything else. In my mind, there's just no other way. There's too much gear. And so that's what this video is about. I wanted to give you guys a rundown of the gear that really stood out to me that I'll probably own sometime in the future. This video is sponsored by DistroKid. If you're looking for a music distributor, go with DistroKid. They are on the cutting edge of music promotion as well as social media, which are combined these days, very important. They have a ton of free promotional tools, many of which I use on pretty much every single one of my releases. And there's one called Hyperfollow, which is what we're going to be focusing on later in this video. It's essentially a link in bio link, which pretty much every artist has these days. If you don't, you should. And so DistroKid offers that for free. And so let's get into this. We're going to state the obvious. We're going to start with teenage engineering. And I'm choosing to define teenage engineering, the entire company, as a standout. I mean, how could you not talk about them right now? They are quite controversial. They were showcasing the TX-6, which I should have in my hands relatively soon, as well as the new OP-1 field. It's kind of funny because I actually have an OG OP-1 video coming out soon, which I thought would be obsolete after the OP-1 field, but it's not. They just decided to add on top of what the OP-1 already is. They didn't change the core workflow of the instrument at all. In fact, I'm pretty sure they made over 100 new additions to the OP-1 field, which is crazy. And here's a few standouts for me. I'm going to read these off of my list here. New reverb effect called Mother, which does sound amazing. There's a new synth engine called Dimension. The battery life is increased to 24 hours. Zoomed in sample editing, obviously amazing for sampling. Everything is stereo now, which was one limit with the OG OP-1. So stereo drum sampler engine, stereo synth sampler engine, up to 500 user patches. It's OB4 compatible using FM, which means that there's zero latency. Stereo cluster, synth engine, stereo digital synth engine, right? So all of the engines are stereo. And I'm going to include the entire list here on the screen if you'd like to take a closer look at that. There's a lot of additions. Pause now if you want. It feels great. It's built like a tank. It feels a lot more stable than the OG OP-1. But then of course there's the price, which people have been freaking out over, obviously. As for the TX-6, I saw Tobias using it as a drum machine, which was just so fun.
Synthesis, so it's generating the sounds. It's not samples.
I held it in my hand. It's literally the size of my wallet. As for the feel, obviously it's tiny, so it really depends on what you're looking to use it for. The knobs are tiny, and so if you want to do some like slick EQ, especially in the middle tracks, it's kind of hard to reach for those knobs. So if that's like a DJ quality sort of essential workflow for you, maybe not the best choice. That being said, you could of course assign any parameter that you want to the knobs anyway, so you can make it work. I met up with Cuckoo and he actually has one that he sort of walked me through as well. I can't wait to get my hands on this thing. It's gonna be perfect for my workflow. I'm looking especially to use it for like live performances or DAW-less sets, combining instruments through a tiny mixer. That's my jam. And just a few basic specs that I'm once again reading off of their website. So it's battery powered. It's also a synthesizer and sequencer, 8 built-in effects, They sound really good, by the way. They sound really good. Like professional quality effects, in my opinion. Wireless connectivity, super slimline cables, which I'm not sure if that's like a cool feature. It's a little bit annoying. Obviously, because of the size of the TX-6, you can't use regular cables. They just won't fit. Customizable interface, that's cool. DJ mode, definitely gonna explore that in a video once I get my hands on it. These are off of their website, by the way. The price. So this is obviously something that's a bit of a touchy subject right now. It's hard to justify the prices for these instruments, for this gear. And I'm not the first one to mention it, obviously. The community has spoken already. The prices are high. I actually checked out the beast mammoth that is the MPC X while I was at SuperBooth. I love that thing. And it's currently listed at $2,300 on Perfect Circuit. The OP-1 is $2,000, which is like the same price range for something maybe not as capable, but definitely not as capable as the MPC X. And so I get it, it's hard to justify paying for that, especially for an instrument that already exists in a lesser version, but nonetheless. I actually had a discussion over on TikTok about this. It's kind of all about perspective. Like if you bought a sampler in the 80s, it would probably cost 10 grand, maybe more, but they were all just priced like that at the time. That was the price. But now obviously it's different. You could buy something that's equally as capable as the OP-1 for a lot less expensive. So there's definitely like a designer product vibe going on there. There's no two ways about it. Like I'm not gonna beat around the bush. It's designer. They've stepped into the designer realm. As for the TX-6, there's literally nothing else like it. It's built very well, and I know that it definitely seems overpriced, but I don't want to speak on it yet. Once I get my hands on it, I'll give you guys a better idea of what I think about the price. I acknowledge that it's hard even for like a positive gear YouTuber like myself to justify those types of prices. It is what it is. Like there's not really much that we could do about it at this point. And of course you could always buy other gear that's equally as capable for much less expensive. And so all of that being said, the guys, like the team at Teenage Engineering, they're the ones that I connected with the most as individuals. They were super nice guys. I spent a long while at their tent just shooting the shit, trying out the OP-1 as well as the TX-6. I watched Tobias play with the OB4 as well as the TX-6, and the team was just overall great vibes. We did discuss the expensive price of the OP-1. Obviously they have their take on it as well, but I do really like the crew. I like their concept and where they're moving as a company. Obviously they do have products that are a lot more affordable. Pocket operators, their modular stuff is also affordable, although it's very entry level. Their M1 headphones sound pretty good. They're very affordable. The OPZ is also in the affordable realm for what it's capable of doing. So yeah, that's my take on Teenage Engineering. The Polyend Play. So this would be like my first Deluge kind of looking thing with a ton of buttons on it. I can't speak too deeply on this one because obviously I've just had my first impression of it. I can say that the feel is great. I love the buttons. I love the interface. It's kind of similar in a way to the Polyend Tracker, which I also love. They essentially showed me the basics, and my takeaway was that like the Polyend Tracker, the workflow is very linear. Kind of scary at first, but after you spend some time with it, it makes a lot of sense and everything kind of just falls into place. Also like the tracker editing, so like copy, pasting, selecting tracks, doubling tracks, all those sorts of things is an absolute breeze. I would say that that part of the instrument, that workflow, is the cleanest and easiest to work with that I've seen. A lot of people who use Ableton say that there's a similarity there. It's kind of like Ableton in a box in terms of the workflow, sort of similar to the Elektron sequencer workflow, like the Digitakt, as in you select a step and you're able to change the parameters of that specific step pretty deeply. And you could have more than one sample per track. I found that the stock samples are actually quite usable. They're very surprising. The amount of sheer space that's on this thing in terms of patterns and variations, unless you're trying to like beat the Guinness World Record or whatever for the longest track, you're never gonna run out of space. I spoke to the community as well, so the other synth YouTubers, Beats as well as Cuckoo, and we actually all agreed. We were all very surprised by the potential of the Polyend Play. I'd love to see how that develops. Definitely a takeaway. A good hour playing with the Syntakt, and I caught on pretty quick because it's quite similar to the other Elektron boxes, so the Digitakt as well as the Digitone. In my humble opinion, it's great. It's not groundbreaking. I don't like that you can't sample with it. I mean, I'd still love to have it, especially for the purposes of this channel, but I own the Digitakt as well as the Digitone, so for me, it's like, I don't need it. If you're going for classic throwback drum sounds, it's kind of hard to dial that sort of vibe in which case the Digitact might be best for you. You could just sample like a 909, 808, stuff like that. There are, of course, some perks though. Obviously, having 12 tracks to me is the #1 perk, 4 of which are analog. I mean, that within itself is quite tempting. It's also got 12 MIDI tracks as well as a fully sequenceable effects track. Maybe I should get one. Once again, here's some other key features of the Syntakt. Pause now if you'd like. In my opinion, like I said, it's definitely not groundbreaking, but it could definitely make for a great first Elektron box. But of course, it's more expensive, so take it or leave it. If you own the Digitact or Digitone alone or together, like I said, you definitely don't need the Syntakt. This next one's kind of a curveball, which definitely caught me by surprise. If you're a fan of this channel, you know that I love drums and drum machines, and this is a company I've actually never heard of before. Uno Drum. This thing is killer, it's very cool, it's very simple, and I think for this example, it's best if you hear it.
Let's go for a digital sound.
So what you're hearing isn't just drums through the Uno soloed, it's actually being run through X Drive, which is a really killer distortion pedal. If I remember this guy's name correctly, it was Manuel and myself were just blowing the speakers at the event at this point. I also recorded this take through my field recorder or audio interface, the Zoom H5, but that audio is just completely unusable. You should see the wave, it's just like completely crushed. So what you're hearing is the audio coming through the speakers going into my camera microphone. This is not a new drum machine, it's simple, it's totally capable, and I'd love to get my grubby little hands on it, as well as the X Drive. I mean, why not? And there's one other thing, just cause. There was an MPC section, and once again, this is not new gear, but seeing the MPC X in person, all nice and set up, I was blown away. Like, that thing is serious. I have an MPC 1, which I guess is better for traveling, but it's not battery powered, so I guess the Live is a better choice for that even. But the X puts those other two to shame. It's specifically a studio instrument, like you're not gonna move around with that thing. It's obviously not my thing right now. It's not really something that I could fit in this studio. I'd have to redesign all of my gear around the MPC X. But I don't know, maybe dropping some big money on the X would solve my gas forever. Yeah, who am I kidding? And now let's talk about that link in bio link that DistroKid offers. It's called Hyperfollow. First off, it's $20 a year to release unlimited music to all major streaming platforms with DistroKid, so go with them. There is a 7% discount linked in the description of this video. If you're someone who's already using a link in bio link, it's possible that you're paying for it like I was just a few months ago. Hyperfollow is essentially the same thing, but it's free and it's just as high quality. Here's what it looks like. You can embed your latest YouTube video, your latest single, your social links, other important links you'd like to lead people to. If I click on this link right here, it's My Music, and it brings me to a second Hyperfollow page. And this way my audience could choose the platform that they actually use to stream their music. And by the way, you could claim as many Hyperfollow pages as you'd like for free. This is just one of many reasons to go with DistroKid. Like I said, I use their promotional tools on pretty much every single one of my releases. You know where to go for that discount. And that's it. So that was SuperBooth 2022. Those are my takeaways. Thank you guys so much for watching. I've left purchase affiliate links to all of the gear that I talked about in this video, so make sure to check that out if you're interested in purchasing any of this gear. If you use those links, I actually make a small commission from that sale at no extra charge to you. So that's one way of supporting me outside of subscribing, liking this video, commenting, sharing. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm pretty good at getting back to you guys. And yeah, hope to see you soon.